Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation. And my guest today is Mark Collins. He is a husband, father, pastor, and coach with a passion to see Christian men equipped to be the hero God created them to be. I love that. And I really wanted to use that as the title of this episode, and I probably did. Mark is also the author of Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default. He's the founder of Freedom for Life and the creator of Life Mastery online courses. So the full bio will be at the end. But the question that I love asking all my guests from the get-go, you're probably familiar with, is how would you introduce yourself? Who is Mark in this very moment?
That's a great question. It could be a life coach. It could be a transformational strategist. It could be all of those things. But really, I am just Mark Collins. And when I introduce myself to somebody, there's typically not a title I add to it. First off, in the bio that we read, there's a title there. But what I desire for people to know is to know me, and in that place, in that conversation, in that relationship, how I can invest in them. So. My name is Mark Collins. If you were talking about the most important thing in my life, other than my God, it would be my wife. So she's typically really quickly thereafter. And then I have kids and dogs and all sorts of life that I'm living. But that's kind of the start for me.
Yes, how wonderful. I love the human connection too. And we can really tell a lot about people and how they are living their lives by the connections that they make and what they value, right, in life. That's it's very big. So, gosh, Mark, I have so many other questions to follow up with that. The one was about mastery, but before that, what led you to this moment? Writing the book, in doing so many things in the name of God, I have to say.
Yeah. So the God part and the book part, I would say separately. I think for me, there was a spiritual journey of figuring out, my own walk in Christianity and who I was created to be. Grew up in a church, but really more socially than relationally. Yeah. And in that place, I remember in the sixth grade, my dad was in the military and we moved to a bunch of different locations. The last location that we went to in Utah, in the United States, he told me and my sisters, "Hey, you're old enough." I was 12 years old. He said, "You're old enough to know if you want to continue to go to church or not." And because it wasn't something that I was passionate about or that really brought any value, I thought at the time, I stopped going. Got reintroduced later on as an adult in relationship with my wife and raising our kids. Mm-hmm. Started off as her kids. I tell people that when I married my wife, I married into a family. Yes. Because she had 2 children when I met her. Mm. And in that place, really kind of pursuing that journey again, knowing that there was good moral teaching and foundation that I wanted to give the children, come to find out God was doing a work in me as well. Right. And so for me, the God part was really engaging in a relationship that I didn't know that I needed, that I had all along. And so that was really me kind of doing that, became a pastor because I felt that the experience and the relationship I had with God, I felt like it would change anybody's life if they had the same. And so that was investing in them. And so, which kind of is an interesting transition to life mastery. So I created a course, wrote the book that you see over my shoulder, because there was a transformational journey for me in starting to unpack and understand who I was created to be. And it was from a spiritual aspect, but really it came down to the practicalities of life in that I was dealing with fear of failure and imposter syndrome, trying to succeed in business, academically, athletically, really taking all these outside endeavors to try and prove an inside worth. And at the end of the day, still dealing with fear of failure and imposter syndrome. And so as I started to unpack instruction and transformation for myself, I started seeing myself show up as the person I believed I could be, a person of confidence and assurance, of passion and purpose in my life, and started seeing that, man, I believed I could be, even as a young teenager, believed I could be, who wasn't always showing up. Well, when he started showing up on a consistent basis, I started to see a transformation in my life. Fear of failure and imposter syndrome, went away, and I was able to confidently walk in who I was. I saw that was the same journey that a lot of people were on, Valeria. And so for me, what I wanted to do was to give people what I call your blueprint to freedom in your life, and in being able to really, if you could do these tools and strategies in your life, find that same transformation, that same unpacking of that, what I call that hero on the inside, that you're created to be. And so I invested in the course to help to guide people in that. And then the book it was, kind of what I would call the shortcut guide to life mastery. It's kind of like that user guide you get when you have a phone or a new device that tells you all the things you need just to get started today. It's
Yeah.
not all the bells and whistles, but it'll get you started in whatever you're doing. That's kind of what the book is for me. That was the first goal for it. The second one, to be totally honest, was my mom told me I should write a book. And you write about what you know. And my passion is life mastery and helping people in it. And so I wrote that. And just to share the end of that story, my mom passed away in April of last year. And I was very grateful that at the end of the previous year, I had finally got the book published, and I was able to go to her home and hand her the very first copy of that book that she inspired me to write.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. Gosh, and with that in mind, yeah, thank you for sharing that about your mother too. So she played a role in the design, right, of the person that you're
Yeah.
supposed to be. How beautiful!
Yeah.
How everything is interconnected and connected. What is your view on death? I know as Christians, I think they believe in heaven, right? But talk to me about your own perspective from your own experience. Do we really die?
Um, uh, well, if you want to look at it scripturally, yes, our body does die. It does go down into the grave, but there's a spiritual component to who we are. What I truly believe is that the spirit is who you really are.
Right.
And so what, this cliche or phrase that's being used, it says that we are spiritual beings living in an earthly body.
Yes.
And in that place, that there's a spiritual portion of who you are, that the innate value and character of who you are, that design and the individual that you are meant to be
Yes.
is simply lived out through your body, through your actions, through your life on earth. And so there's an eternal component to it that, in Christianity, we believe, which means that there's a spirit that lives, that came before your body was born and will live after your body is gone.
Right.
And in that place, for us, the ultimate goal is to obviously be in relationship with God, to spend eternity with him as spiritual beings.
Right. Yes. What a beautiful and clear answer to me. That just resonates true, because I do not, yeah, I don't believe we just the body. So I do. That's so hard to say, isn't it? We are not the body, and the mind, even in the thoughts,
Yeah.
memories, and all that. But yeah, so the spirit, the soul. Do you see them as one and the same when you hear these concepts, those words?
That's a
Spirit.
great question. I don't see them as the same. So
Mm.
in Christianity, there's a teaching of your flesh, which is your body, your soul, and your spirit. Your soul being the character, the attributes that make you, right? The things that make you laugh, the things that bring you joy, the
Right.
tenacity that makes you, the intentionality that makes you, are those things.
Yeah.
But your spirit is simply the spiritual portion and component of who you are. It's the eternal segment of who you are. And
Right.
then, of course, we understand the flesh, the body is how that is lived out.
Yes. Yeah. So the soul is in a way connected to personality. Would you say? Is it It's very much
Yeah,
open.
absolutely. So the things that
Personal.
make you, kind of that unique personality you have, are you introverted or extroverted? Do you like this thing or that thing? What level of humor do you have? What level of thoughtfulness do you have? And all of those attributes that make you you. A lot of, the world tries to explain them away as just physical attributes that you learn from over time, but there's an innateness to them that I think most people realize that hasn't always just come from, this is what my parents were, so this
Mm.
is how I react. There are
Right.
definitely components of that you learned behaviors, but
Mm.
there's an innateness to some characteristics of individuals that I don't think can be explained by just simply saying that
Mm.
I learned it from an early age. I think there's something that seems to be implanted or,
Right.
authentically, organically in us that is that part and portion of who we are.
Yes, yeah. And not to go on and on with the soul, but some people believe that we have been here before. We have, some spiritual traditions, the ones that I have been in contact with. Buddhism's one of them, Hinduism, that we are just have been incarnating over and over and over again. Is that
Yeah.
something that it's not a belief system to me. It seems like we have enough evidence now with near death experience and all that, um, to kind of have a glimpse into the truth that we don't. It seems like the spirit never dies, is what we are, the true of essence. But then there's this part of us that you call the soul. Some people call it different names, that keep moving on and on. Is that an idea that you would entertain at all?
I don't think it's something that I have entertained. Certainly, the near death portion of it is absolutely
Yeah.
kind of what I consider to be a confirmation of the eternal. Again, science
Yes,
can
Mark.
explain it away, but they can't really authentically explain away all of the circumstances and experiences of people who have.
Right.
So yeah, there's definitely, as I said before, there's an eternal component to who we are, and that eternal component, for the faith system that I have is the spirit. It's the same spirit that goes to heaven, the same spirit that comes into a baby
Mm,
when it's initiated and born, when
yes.
when it's created, not necessarily just when it's born.
Right.
So as far as multiple lives or generations or living previous lives, that's not something that I've really entertained or really given much thought to be totally honest.
Yes, thank you for your honesty. I will end here with that part of it. So, life mastery. See, I think off record I mentioned that I wanted to ask you that question. What is to master one's life? Or what is mastery in its essence? How would you explain that in simple language, if possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in the simple language that I use for people is life mastery in the context of what we do is you living from who you're created to be
Mm,
at the highest level you're created for in every area of life. And so,
yes.
for the people that I work with in the system that I've created, I see life in five spheres, and that is the spiritual, relational, vocational, physical, and financial. So in
Right.
these five areas of life, if you're mastering yourself in those areas, you're living a life. And really the counterpoint to life mastery is life management. And what I've said in my book and other places as well, and it's in my course, is that many times we're living through life management, which is really just kind of going through the day to day of life and
Mm,
responding
mm,
to the things that happen to the best of our ability. But I believe that there is, design tools and strategies that you can live that allow you to not just live, but really live authentically from your created value, from your what we call your identity, and
yes.
to live at that highest level. See, life mastery isn't just me having a job or having a business, but saying what is the maximized version of who I'm supposed to be in this business or in my relationship with my wife, right?
Right.
What's the what's the highest level of life that we're supposed to be living together, that place of intimacy and authenticity and vulnerability, that that shared experience and that unity and
Mm,
purpose and passion that we have, right? So it's
yeah.
not just being in those areas, those spheres of life mastery, but really living at the highest level you're created for. And the reason for that, Valeria, is that I believe that a lot of times there's this longing for more in our lives. But
Yes.
really, what it comes from is this, I believe, again, your spirit, your soul, whatever you want to call it, that there's this inner belief that there's more than here. There's more than where I'm at. There's more than the life I'm living now. And so that dissatisfaction to me is a gift because it's a truth on the inside saying there's more than where I'm at. And so living at that highest level is really trying to actualize that and understand, okay, well, what's the vision for that? What does that look like
Mm,
lived out? And how can I walk towards that life? Because to me, that's the life of fulfillment, a life that says that this is exactly what I'm created for.
mm.
And it's a satisfaction beyond success. It's a knowing that this is me lived out at the level that I'm created for. And to me, there's a joy and a satisfaction that comes there that you don't get in any other place.
It's so true. Yeah, I call it fulfillment. It's that sense of
Yes.
peace, isn't it? That you are at peace with everything. Um, I love that. This concept of being created for something, designed for something. So, then we are unique, of course, but we do share some common threads per se when it comes to that. When we are there, we know there's a sense of peace, of fulfillment. So, is that something that when it comes to the let's say development or how it is expressed in the world in all these areas that you just mentioned, these five areas, is that something that uh, like a destination, so we get there and we stay there in
Hmm.
those areas, or it's something that's always unfolding and we are not actually, we don't have a clear vision for, or do we?
No, I think so. I think there's both. I think there is definitely a clear vision because you can't reach a place that you don't know how to get to. I tell people you can't hit a target that you don't see, and so
Right.
there is a vision, but that vision can grow over time. So my life, and I'm sure yours, Valeria, is a great example. So who I am today, in this year, in this this season of my life, is different than who I was 10, 15, even 5 years ago.
Right.
So in that place, from the starting point of today,
Yeah.
what does that vision for those areas look like? And if I can go back to what you talked about as far as fulfillment, I love what you say there. It's actually what I tell people is that the goal that we have in the work that we do is not to give you success, because success is easy. Not that you don't have a lot of hard work that you put into it, but it's easy from the standpoint of it's simply me working hard enough, long enough, outworking the next person in my field to
Yeah.
become successful at it.
Yeah.
And there's many people that use that as the gauge of the fulfillment of their life. But at the end of the day, when you reach that point of success, you'll find that you're still lacking.
Yes.
That the satisfaction only lasts for a period of time, and then you have to recreate it. But for us, like you talked about so eloquently, it is fulfillment that I believe, and it's
Mm.
fulfillment for us is really living from that place of passion, the person that you're created to be lived out.
Yeah.
Success is an outward expression of it, but it's not striving for success. It's striving to live out the life you're created for. And success is a byproduct that comes
Mm.
from that place. But in that place, there's joy and there's peace. And the things that you talked about, there's this rich sense of life being lived
Mm.
that you don't just get from being successful.
Mm.
My book, the title is Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default.
Yeah.
Many times, and frankly, everybody I know, including myself, we're typically live by default. And in this case, that default looks like, well, success is what everybody else says you're supposed to strive for.
Yes.
It's what we see on Instagram. It's those things that make people popular and make them famous.
Right.
But we don't realize that many times people are getting to the top of that mountain and they're just as dissatisfied as when they get to the bottom because they thought success would change everything. But really, success is just a component part of your fulfillment in your life. When it becomes everything, then it's a substitute for identity
Mm.
instead of you living from identity.
That's one of the topics that suggests the top unpacking identity. You said that. So God created every man on purpose for a purpose. The more we understand the truth of our divine identity, the more we live it out. Yes. So basically, it's living from the inside out. That's what the suggestion is here, which we all know that too. I mean, we have heard that so many times, but how funny that is that we don't tend to listen. I see that we just hear so many times that we kind of dismiss it as not being true or being overstated. Or I don't know what. Isn't it interesting? I love simple things for a reason because I know they carry a lot of truth. They are
Yeah.
just think about it. What is that Jesus that said, "Love your neighbor as you love yourself."
Yes.
Basically, love everyone as you love yourself. I mean, you cannot get more powerful than that. If we can live that teaching, just live it out, that one teaching, everything would change. This reality would be completely different,
No,
isn't it?
absolutely. I love that. And I mean, I don't mean to unpack it a little bit, but
Yeah.
most people focus on the first part and they don't focus on the second. And the first part is important, but it can't be done without the second. Meaning, I can't love somebody else if I don't love myself. I
Mm,
can't authentically and honestly love you if I don't
right,
love me.
right.
Because in that place, my love for you is a substitution for my love for myself. And
Mm,
if you don't
mm,
love me back, now all of
yeah.
a sudden, what does that say about me? And so that second part is the part of identity being unpacked. In
Mm,
order for me to love myself, I need to know who I am. I
yes.
tell people you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. And
Mm,
unfortunately, all of us have a life that have told us some things. And it's unfortunate from the standpoint that there's pains and hurts and issues and struggles and challenges that we've walked through that many times we've taken on as an identity statement. So when we're in relationships that don't work out, we believe we're somebody who's not worth loving. Or in my own life, when I struggled academically early on in school, I felt like I wasn't as smart as the other people around me. Well, when you take on those understandings as an identity statement, you start to live them out and you start to limit yourself in the life that you're supposed to live. Again, there's that longing on the inside saying there's more, but there's that voice in your head saying that I'm not good enough to have it. So, yeah, it all comes down to identity and the work we do.
right. That's a big one. The identification with what we are not, right? That causes so much trouble. And tell me about it. And this is something that it seems to me like it's always unfolding too, Mark, isn't it? Is
Yes.
that, do you feel like it is a destination? Can we get to the point of truly knowing what we are and coming from that place all the time at all times?
Um, so, yes and no. The yes part is there's a place with a struggle that I had called imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is, in a nutshell, one easy definition is it's you believing you're not worthy of the thing you're walking into, whether it's
Mm,
the business you're creating, the relationship you have, the presentation you're supposed to give, the book you're intending to write, whatever it is. There's
yeah.
this imposter syndrome that says that I'm not good enough. And if
Okay.
they only knew that I wasn't good enough, they wouldn't allow me to have this opportunity. The opposite of that is understanding that you not only are good enough, but that you are the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. It's
Mm,
living from the place of who you are, and
mm,
in that place living it out. And so, the yes part of the conversation of can I always live from that place we have, things that we do, strategies that we implement for the people we work with to master your thoughts, the things you say
Yeah.
on the inside. And, in many times we understand the thoughts we're supposed to think about our outcomes and our tasks and those things we're doing, but we don't realize that all of our outcomes really come from a place of, first off, understanding who we are. So in
Yes.
that place, it really doesn't matter what I say about a task if what I say about myself is I'm not qualified to live it. And so we deal with mastering your thoughts in a way that allows you to say this. What I tell people is, if the thoughts you have about yourself aren't aligned with who you're created to be, then they're lying to you. And so we have tools that we unpack, mastering your, affirmations that we use to start to give you a pre-framing of who you are.
Yeah.
Basically choosing your thoughts before the stress happens so that when you do have stressful times, the thoughts that come up are the ones that you've told yourself about you. And so in that place, you start to show up as that man or woman of confidence and of assurance and of passion, that person that believes you're competent in the things you're doing. And the phrase I said earlier, that you're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. You're not the question to be figured out. And so why I said yes was because when I start to believe who I'm created to be, when I start to not just remind myself, but see that individual, that person showing up on a daily basis, I don't have to remind myself of being that. And what I tell people is I can't fail at being me, which means that if I continue to live from that place of identity, I continue to show up as who I am, and it becomes an effortless excellence because I don't have to remind myself of who I am. I just have to show up as that person.
I love that. Yeah, right. It's something that we don't have to be reminded of. That's interesting, which is very different from thoughts. Thoughts is something that we seems like we struggle to manage. There's a lot of management when it comes to thinking, isn't it? But thinking is not what we are. I learned to just let them come and go, like thoughts in general. They just come to visit, and I just let them come, do what they do, even stir the emotions that are supposed to stir up, and then I just let them pass instead of trying to push them away, because that would create a lot of problems, and has in the past.
Yeah.
You also mentioned about words in your book, the content, I think, yes, chapter 9, your words matter. So how do we transition from thoughts to words? Is that something that we have to replace thoughts first in order for them to be, let's say, to manifest as words, or can we start with words and then change our thoughts?
So so let me give you a big phrase, and I'll say it slowly in case anybody wants to write it down. What I tell people, and I believe I have it written in my book, I definitely tell them in my course as well. What I tell them is this: what you think you'll say, what you say you'll do, and what you do you'll become. So think, say, and do. So that's why we have a 3-step transformational strategy, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions. There's not a word that I speak that actually doesn't start with a thought that I'm thinking, right? There's nobody who randomly says things out of their mouth that actually didn't start with a thought in their head. So to answer that question that you had, yeah, definitely it would start with thoughts. But it doesn't just end with thoughts, because here's the interesting thing. What I tell people is, what are your words saying about you? It's not just the thoughts that you think, right? But when something comes up or you make a mistake, I had somebody I cared about yesterday who was calling themselves stupid because they made a mistake in something, an ordinary mistake, whatever. But thoughts matter, and words do as well. And what we don't realize is the words that you speak do 2 things. They basically tell you and the world what you think of yourself, and they give you instructions to live out. And what it means is that when I tell people that or tell myself I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I can't do it, I'm, the horrible, whatever the thing is that you're telling yourself, it's not just something you're expressing from a belief system, again, thoughts that are being expressed, but it's you giving your brain instructions to live them out. So when you hear in your own ears, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm worthless, I can't do this, your brain aligns with that thought process and those words spoken and gives you the ability to live it out.
Right.
So that it's going to find ways for that to happen, or it's going to find meaning in the things that you walk through that tell you, oh, see, you couldn't, whatever. You couldn't remember that answer, or you said that silly thing, or you made that mistake on your finances. See, you really aren't somebody as smart as everybody else. Right. So the words matter. There's power in words. You could talk about it spiritually, right? Oh, yeah. It says in the Bible that death and life are in the power of the tongue. So it's you speaking out those things that don't just, in spiritual language, people would say you're commanding it into the universe and you're inviting it into your life. So in that place, what are the words that you're saying? there are definitely those affirmations lived out and spoken out, but it's the things that align with who you are and the direction of life that you're called to versus the words that you're using to hold yourself back and give yourself instructions to stop.
It's so true that it's, I mean, 1,000%, 1,000,000,000%, trillion% true. Yes. You just listen to whoever it is, and then you know what their belief systems are, what their thoughts are by their words, the way what they're saying. Of course, it's
Yeah,
very
that's it.
obvious to me, but it's not obvious to the person who is kind of doing that, using the words that are not in alignment with what they want to be, what they know that they're created for. I love the way you say that too. So, where do we start with people like that? I know a lot of people around me who they're very fearful.
Hmm.
I see fears clearly, the way they speak, and then it's coming from fearful thinking or belief systems. Do you address fear too? And how do you address this rooted fear that most of us have?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think for us, there's definitely a component of emotion that's involved in it.
Right.
But for me, it's the last emotion, not the first. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of, I created Life Mastery because I didn't find a transformational program that
Mm.
actually transformed my life. I saw and invested in a multitude of programs and processes that brought change through habit formation. The
Yeah.
problem is the habit you use to get there is the one you have to use to stay there. And
Right.
so a lot of times one of
Right.
those habits that we use is attacking a negative emotion with a positive affirmation.
Yeah.
And then that's fine. It's a place to start, but when you don't believe it to begin with, it never is going to last very
Mm.
long.
Right.
And so a
Right.
lot of times we use the emotion as the place of targeting and an attack. So fear comes up in my life,
Mm.
and my book, my course, my thing that I've spent money on has told me, okay, well, I've got an affirmation that says, even scripturally, there's biblical teachings that people use that they don't believe in. It's, God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind. And I've used it in my own life when I was using mantras instead of instruction to try and change. And so the mantra or the affirmation is, okay, well, I'm not a person of fear. I'm a person of strength, or I'm a person of, whatever the thing is that
Mm.
you're trying to do. And you
Yeah.
basically beat your thoughts into submission until that negative thought goes away.
Right. Right.
And then you do it the next time it happens. And then you do it the
Right.
time after that, right? Habit formation, the habit I use to get there, I have to use to stay there. That doesn't sound like transformation, Valeria. It sounds
Mm.
like
Yes.
exhaustion.
Yes.
And so a lot of times we try and attack the emotion as if the emotion is the only issue in the equation. But
Mm.
so if
Yeah.
I'll try and unpack this really quickly. I don't mean to rush, but there's a lot that we unpack in the
Yeah.
course. So
Yeah.
there's four pillars of life mastery, the four pillars that we use to transform people's life. The first is identity, the second is experience, the third is meaning, and the fourth is emotion. And I'll
Mm.
unpack these really quickly. Identity, of course, we
Yeah.
talked about that. You're
Yeah.
either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you.
Right.
The second is experience, the experiences that we walk through, the experiences of our past and our present, creating our future. So
Right.
experiences that I walk through, they're good, they're bad, they're challenging, they're horrible, they're anywhere in between. The challenge isn't the experience that I walk through,
Mm.
but the meaning that I take from it.
Right.
Now, if I can skip
Mm.
back to identity, the meaning you take from your experience has nothing to do with the experience you've walked through, but the identity statement you've taken from it. So I am in a
Mm.
relationship that doesn't work out, or maybe I'm in a marriage that fails and we're divorced.
Mm.
The experience isn't good. It's a negative one, and that's fine. I'm not denigrating the experience you've walked through, but the
Yeah.
challenge is the meaning you take from it. The meaning you take from it is, okay, well, I guess I'm not worth loving, or I can't trust women anymore, or this, that, or the other. Whatever the meaning you take
Right.
from it is an identity statement that informs the rest of your life. So that
Right.
meaning is either coming from who you're created to be, remember back to identity, or what your life has told you.
Right.
Well, in my past, relationships haven't worked out, or my parents
Right.
got divorced, or this person hurt me in this way, or I wasn't academically able to succeed. So now, of course, this failure in business is telling me that I'm a failure, that it's not the business that's the issue. It's
Right.
me. I'm not smart enough for this.
Right.
So
Right.
it's the meaning that's the issue. But let's do this. So if I'm in a
Mhm.
relationship that doesn't work out and I find out that it's ended and I have a meaning that says that I'm not worth loving,
Yeah.
what's the emotion that you're going to take from that
Oh.
experience?
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
emotion is going to be devalue, shame,
Right.
right? Regret, whatever the things, depression, those things that you're using. And
Yeah.
so what I tell people is the truth of the matter, the
Mm.
emotion is the only honest thing in the conversation
Mm.
because if I really was somebody that wasn't worth loving, that nobody was ever going to be in a relationship with again, then the appropriate emotion would be shame, worry, regret, sadness.
Yeah.
And so what we use emotion to do is to use it as a flag saying there's something to address here.
Right.
So if it's an emotion of fear or worry or stress,
Mm.
what meaning am I taking from the experience that I'm walking through? It's not the experience itself. Again, there's people who've walked through horrible tragedies
Yeah.
who've walked out the other side empowered and confident and assured. Not that the experience wasn't horrible, but what I
Right.
tell people is we never denigrate your experience. We just don't want it to tell you who you are anymore.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
whether it's amazing or horrible or somewhere in between, it's an
Yeah.
experience to walk through, not an identity statement to take. And so that emotion that we use that as a flag saying, okay, what is the thing I need to walk through and deal with? So I'll walk through this one. So the meaning I've taken from this breakup of a relationship is I'm not somebody worth loving. Maybe even that somebody is abandoned. Okay, well, personal experience in my life, Valeria. Well, the
Right.
question we have next in that and when we unpack is, okay, well, where's the first time you felt that way?
Yeah.
For me, I remember the first time I felt that way when I was 4.5 years old and my dad was in the military. He went to a foreign country because he was transferred there for a period of time. Our family didn't go, but he did. It was one of those types of things. So he was going to be there for over a year. At the
Wow.
same time, my mom was taking care of three of my siblings and myself. I have three sisters and myself.
Yeah.
And I was 4, so my younger sister was 3. My next oldest sister was 5,
Mm.
and my older sister was 12. So the 12, 5, 4, and 3.
Yeah. Wow.
The weight of having to deal with the household and to manage all of those experiences, my mother had a nervous breakdown and she
Huh.
was hospitalized and taken away.
Yeah.
My father was out of the country. My mother was in the hospital. And so her siblings, her sisters and brother, decided that they would each of them take one of us, their children, one of the 4 of us, and take care of us until my father was able to come back from that foreign country.
Yeah.
And so not only did I lose the father who was my structure and strength in my life, the mother who was the compassion and care and love in my life, but now the sisters that I live with on a daily basis, I'm not around them either. I'm by myself and with a relative that I barely know.
Right.
So there's an identity statement that young man took from that relationship that was people who love you leave you.
Mm. Right.
And so when you grow up and your relationship doesn't work out and you're saying that I'm not somebody worth loving, you have an emotion that says that this is shame, this is regret, this is pain, and you backtrack it to where you learn what that is. How do you overcome that? You overcome it by stopping the lie, by telling a truth. The
Mm.
truth for that young man was
Mm.
it wasn't an identity statement or value statement on his life. It was a mom who couldn't deal adequately with her circumstances, did the best she could, and needed help to do better. And in
Yes.
that place of realization, now all of a sudden
Mm.
that unpacks and undoes years worth of feeling inferior and not worth loving.
Yeah.
So the emotion is an amazing flag saying, hey, there's something to deal with here.
Yeah.
But to deal with it, many times, again, habits versus transformation, the habit is I'm going to take that fruit off the tree.
Yeah.
And then when another one comes, I'm going to take it. So when fear comes, I'm going to try and deal with it. And again after that. You don't kill a tree by taking the fruit off of it. You kill it by destroying the roots.
Right.
The root cause is the thing that was telling you that is who you are in your life.
Mm.
The emotion is the flag that shows you where to dig.
Mm.
And in that place, we use transformational tools to try and bring healing in that place. So emotions are definitely a part of it. And they're a wonderful initial understanding of what's going on here. And there's something to deal with. The
Right.
challenge is many times we deal with them as if they were the only thing that's wrong. And that's why we have to continue to deal with them over and over and over again. When we get to roots that bring healing to the past that was lied to us, from
Mm.
that day forward, I find in my own life and those that I've worked with, amazing transformation
Yeah.
where that same challenge can come up. There's issues that happen in everybody's life, but the same emotions don't respond because I'm not that guy anymore.
Right.
I am worthy. I am worth loving. I am somebody of value. I
Mm.
forgive them. I forgive myself, and I move forward in a way that changes my life forever.
That is truly beautiful. Yeah, I love how you did that. And I know it wasn't easy because it has been my case too, and so many people that I talk to.
Yeah.
So, gosh, that is so true. When was that moment that you found out the that the emotions had this root cause. Was there a moment in time, or this is something that happened over time?
Yeah, I think it was a journey over time in being that guy that was dealing with the fruit, really trying to remove that
Right.
apple of
Yeah.
fear,
Me too.
and finding that I was dealing with it over and over again, trying to
Yeah.
use affirmations to convince myself that I'm
Mm.
somebody I didn't believe I was anyway.
Right.
And in that place, really starting to unpack and understand. And I think, part of it was divine revelation, and part of it
Mm.
was some of those teachings from other people, seeing that emotions, are a great indicator, not the ending point, that I
Mm.
started to figure out what it looks like. And then instructionally taking things from the word of God, right? So it's really, to me, a lot of it is answering questions. And that question that I memorized that scripture, God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind. If he hasn't given it to us, then it shouldn't be in us. And you can stop there, or you can ask the question, then how do I overcome this thing I'm not supposed to have? And that was the journey towards my
Yeah.
own transformation, and then my own life mastery journey,
Mm.
and trying to figure it out for myself.
Yeah, it's truly inspiring and beautiful. So it is really like some people say, is the journey of unlearning, of undoing, isn't it? Kind of unblocking the what's covering the sun. It's some people have used that
Yeah.
metaphor of all the clouds blocking the sun. So that's the work. Oh, I have a question for you. Oh, about emotion. Maybe I should ask that question first. So most people, they try to numb their emotions, with substance, alcohol, and you name it.
Yeah.
And this is very natural because we are trying to stop pain, because we naturally do that. We wanted to just get away from pain and just move toward joy,
Yeah.
pleasant experiences. So what is your suggestion for embracing the emotions, especially when they are repetitive? There's a pattern there. We know that they are just keep coming to us. So what is the first thing to do? I'm wondering from your perspective. How do we deal with those emotions that we are craving to just push them away immediately? We just we've been doing this for so long, myself and so many people that I know as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is to recognize and to be honest that you're doing it.
Mm,
My
yeah,
book, Life
true.
Mastery by Design, Not by Default,
Yeah.
um, there's this default mechanism that says, when these things happen, I do this. And the truth of the matter is, Valeria, it's interesting. You've talked about,
Yeah.
drugs and alcohol and sex and all
Oh,
of those things, but it can also be power. It can also be
mm,
control. It can also be anger. It can also be success, right? It can also be
mm,
possessions and trying to gain many things, right? And what I tell people is all
yeah.
of these things
Mm,
are a medication against the life we don't want
right.
and the person we don't want to be. So in that place,
Mm,
it's understanding that you're in Christianity, you call it a sin, but we'll just call it a struggle with those things that you're dealing with are a symptom. They're not the root.
right.
They're not the thing to overcome. You don't, again, habits that you manage versus transformation that you live. Many times in many programs, unfortunately, they get you to deal with the habit, right?
Yes.
Be around somebody else, create a sponsor, have an accountability person online so you don't look at pornography or, all of those things. They're trying to habit away your healing, and it just doesn't happen. So in the
Right.
place it's understanding, first and foremost, really all you're doing is medicating yourself. And the problem isn't an addiction you need to control. It's
Mm,
an identity you need to reveal. And
mm,
so again, the
yeah.
emotion is the last thing we deal with, because if I'm only dealing with emotions, I'll always deal with them. But if I start with identity and start unpacking some of those things, for us, it's, there's a couple of tools we use. One is an I am statement. Who are
Yeah.
you apart from your past and apart from your success?
Mm,
And in that place, start to reveal that person to you
yeah.
so that that person actually shows up. So it's not just dealing with symptoms. It's not dealing with just the fruit, but it's the root. The
Yeah.
root of everything is identity. You're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. The outcome of your life telling you things is, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to remember those things.
Mm,
And so I feed myself. I drink these things. I take these things. And for a moment, I'm numb, not satisfied,
right.
not happy, but I'm
Right.
numb, and then I'll have to do it again.
Mm,
So recognize that it's a symptom. It's a
mm,
medication against the life you don't like, and start to figure out that life starts with you understanding who you are.
yeah.
And there's a chapter in my book, and there's a teaching in my course that says this: dissatisfaction is a gift.
Haha,
That
yeah.
dissatisfaction with where I'm at is a gift, because if I was satisfied with where I was,
Yeah.
then maybe this is all that I'm meant for. But
Yeah.
just the fact that you don't like where you're
Mm.
at, get away from, the medication you're using, but just the fact that you don't like where you're at is
Yes.
an indication, again, that spirit soul thing that we talked about earlier, that the
Yes.
spirit on the inside of you is telling you there's more than where you're at and how you're living. And
Mm.
to me, there's great hope in that, because in that place, that means that I'm right. There
Yes.
is more than here. This isn't all that I'm meant for it. I don't just have to manage this stuff for the rest of my life. And in
Mm.
that place, that's a
Mm.
great start to say, okay, now what's the alternative that brings healing and brings transformation? For us, it starts with identity. I'm Because at the end of the day, if I'm getting you to control your habits, it's the habit you'll have to use for the rest of your life, and that habit will lead to exhaustion.
Yeah.
And if you're perfect, it'll work. But
Yeah.
even in that work, you'll never have the life you're meant for. You'll just have a habit that you are owned by. I don't want you to have that. I want you to have a transformation of you being unleashed. And that
Mm.
starts with understanding that what you're doing now isn't working. That dissatisfaction is a gift telling you there is more, which is a great joy. And there is a path forward that starts with you unpacking who you are, not what your life has told you, but who you are innately with
Yeah.
value and worth. And how do
Mm.
we get that man or woman to show up?
Mm.
We have tools and strategies to do it. You just need to be able to be willing to invest in it.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. That's to me one of the greatest investments that we can make, in ourselves, in the sense of in not even discovering, but uncovering, isn't it? What we are, because it's not even a discovery, because it has been always here. It's not something that has been hidden anyway. It's so obvious, but we tend not to see it. So I love guides like you. So many people that I talk to, they're just you feel like they're just a true friend. That's what it
Hmm.
feels like. Somebody who is here to guide you back to where you're supposed to be. That you never left in a way you never left that place, but you just forgot about it. It's a forgetting type of thing.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges for me has been on my spiritual path has been knowing that I'm already what I'm looking for. So the divine presence that I've been always, that love, unconditional love that I was looking for as a person, as a young woman, as a child, had been always there, and it's here, fully present here. So I don't really need anything else but that love, or the presence of unconditional love that God is.
Yeah.
So the challenge is to when it comes to changing the situation, like the body, mind, and the emotions, because I had a lot of trauma and then they keep coming back, here and there they come back, and I try not to push them away. I kind of accept that they're there, and I don't kind of tend to see that as a dissatisfaction. So
Yeah.
I kind of give myself to the moment, and I stay present with that love, and I let it be. Is that something? What is your advice or your suggestion with people like me, for example, that sees everything as perfect already? There's really nothing to change when it comes to that presence of God. When it's here, it just kind of overrides everything else. So it has gotten me in trouble though. So, but how? Yeah, talk to me for a moment about that.
um, the presence of God is amazing, and that thing that you talked about earlier about you already have everything that you need.
Yes.
There's a scriptural truth in that, and I believe it's innately there. And the thing that you talked about, there's a scripture that says that don't be conformed to the pattern of this world. It sounds a
Yeah.
lot like my book title, Life by Default,
Yeah.
which is the pattern of the
Yeah.
world. Do not be conformed to the
Yeah.
pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Sounds like
Mm,
changing your thoughts.
yeah.
Then you'll be
Yeah.
able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will.
Right.
I memorized it because I
Mm,
wanted that second part,
mm,
knowing what his will was. I didn't know what the first part was of trying to be transformed by renewing my mind. That was unpacked in what
mm,
is now life mastery. That
yeah.
word transformation if you looked at the original language, it's the word metamorpho.
Mm,
That word metamorpho is where we get the word in English metamorphosis.
yeah.
I'm a bit of a nerd, so I studied it.
Yeah.
That word metamorphosis, if you look it up, there's only one example that I saw that it gave, and that was a caterpillar to a butterfly.
Yeah.
and
Mm,
and
mm,
so there's a caterpillar to a butterfly, and that's the transformational process that's envisioned in that verse. The interesting thing was, again, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I studied even that. I studied the process of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. And by the way, my wife and I
mm,
started a business that we
mm,
successfully sold for a quality profit. It was a preschool. And in the preschool, you have this kind of science. I say that with air quotes because it's not real hard science. It's teaching children that are really young a
Mhm.
concept of, scientific things. And
Yes.
so part of that was us ordering. I don't know if you knew this, but you can order online butterfly habitats,
Mm.
and it'll come to you in the mail, and it's
Mm.
caterpillars in a box with some leaves and
Oh,
things. You put
that's
it in a case or a vase or somewhere, and eventually they'll do the process of
mm.
caterpillar to chrysalis to butterfly. Funny
Yeah,
thing was that
beautiful.
we did it for 3 years in a
Yeah.
row, and always hoping that during class time during the day the butterflies would come out and it would be
Mm.
amazing. But every time it
Mm.
happened, they would come out of the chrysalis and become a butterfly overnight, and we would never see the transitional process.
Oh, no.
We'd go in and be a chrysalis, we'd come back in, oh, they're butterflies, okay, great.
Yeah.
But interesting thing that I found out in studying the caterpillar to the butterfly, it said this: if you take a strand of DNA of the caterpillar and you take a strand of DNA of the butterfly and you compare them under the microscope, you'll find out that they're exactly the same. The
Ah,
creature didn't change, the outward appearance did. Many
right.
times in transformation in the life that we're trying to live, we
Mm.
believe that I have to
Mm.
become somebody different.
Mm.
I'm not good enough as I am. I'm not adequate enough. I am not the person I'm hoping to be. Even in Christianity, we pray this prayer of God, change me. What we mean is that I'm not good enough as I am. Make me
Mm.
somebody different.
Mm.
And the
Yeah.
truth of the matter is, that's not what he's asking you to do. He's not asking you to add things to you so you can change. What he's asking you to do is take things off of you so you can be revealed.
Right.
And so that thing you talked about of having everything you need, that's part of the journey that we walk in life mastery, is
Right.
helping people understand I'm not adding things to you. That's
Mm.
just habit formation. I'm
Yeah,
revealing you to you so that you can live from that place of who you are.
that's
And
it.
so that's the journey, is you being revealed to you so you can live it out. Part of that revealing
Mhm.
is starting to find out lies that you believed. My past telling me who I am,
Yeah.
and in confronting a lie with a truth, you bring healing to yourself, and you can't unknow a truth once you know it. So
That's
from
it.
that point forward, you absolutely are
Mm.
changed and transformed. And so in that place, it's living from that place. And for me, that journey, because I'm a spiritual person, that is a journey that I walk in with God,
Yeah.
and having him guide me in those things and being in a relationship with him in those things and all of that. It doesn't mean that if you don't have a spiritual journey, you can't use the tools, because what I tell people is, just because you don't know the author of the truth doesn't mean that truth won't work for you. So
Mm.
the truth always works, because that's what it is truth.
Truth.
But
Mm.
when you have that deeper relationship, like you've talked about in your own life, now all of a sudden there's aspects of life that are enriched in ways beyond which you could probably give words to, because of that
Mm.
relationship. So
Mm.
it is absolutely not just a benefit, but an amazing gift in being able to do that.
Yes, yes, Mark. Thank you. Wow, for unpacking that too. I love the way you unpack things in a very clear way, and it's beautiful too. We have lost you know, the touch with sacredness, and that's one of the things that
Mm,
I'm really, sometimes gets me sad when I see people around me, and I meet them, and they're just they don't even know that they are sacred themselves, and
yeah,
they walk in life just treating everything else as not sacred. And that is, I think that's the saddest thing for me, for the body mind, if I can detach that from my true nature. So it's, and you're right, it was never transformed. It was always there. So it's like an oak tree, right? You have the acorn. The tree's already there, actually. We can't
yeah,
see it yet, but it's been always there in that seed. So, how beautiful. I just love everything about what you're doing, your presence in this reality, with this fullness, of not just wisdom, timeless wisdom, spiritual wisdom, but your humanness too. I think, you see, we needed to kind of integrate them, be fully human and fully divine at the same time. And
yeah,
there's no shame about being human. I know there's in some spiritual traditions, they do kind of shame the body and try to tame the body in so many ways, but I don't think it's the way. How do I have a lot of practices that train the body and the mind to behave in a certain way? But I think it's more the embracing of everything as sacred. That would change even the way we treat the body mind, right? If we
yeah,
know it's sacred, and then everything else. Gosh,
absolutely.
I could talk to you forever about these things. So we're almost at the end. I want to mention, so your book again, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design and Not by Default. That's oh, your book is on Amazon, right, Mark? We'll have the
Yeah.
link. So the
Yeah,
link will be
my book's on Amazon, and you can get an ebook version of it on my website
there.
at freedom-for-life.net. So if you like it electronically on any device you have, you can get the electronic version as well.
Oh, wonderful. I'll have the link here. I do have the link for the courses. So, Introduction to Freedom, Life Mastery, Life by Design, Life Mastery Acceleration Training. Did I miss any of the courses, Mark?
Nope, that's the three of them. The marquee one that really all of these tools are a part of is the Life Mastery course.
Wonderful. So I'll have the website then because I have course.freedom dash for dash life.net. Should I keep this?
You can, but freedom-for-life.net, if you put that into your URL, you'll be able to find it there as well.
Yeah,
It's
so
a little bit easier.
I'll do it that way. So it'll be clickable and that's easy. So we're almost at the end, a few minutes left. Gosh, is there anything that you left unsaid for any questions I didn't ask?
The one thing I would tell people is there's one thing I didn't write in my whole transformational journey. We talked about all the courses that I took and the change in habits and that I created a transformational course because I couldn't find one. The one through thread that I had that was exactly what I was supposed to do was I refused to give up on myself. Even though, the first course didn't work, the seventh book really didn't bring the transformation and all of those things. So for anybody who's listening to this, there's one thing that you need to do. You can sign up for my Life Mastery course, and I think it's got amazing transformational tools, but there's one ingredient I can't bring to it. And that's you being willing to bet on yourself one more time, whether you've done 10 things, 20 things, had 3 coaches and read 200 books, and it hasn't worked for you. The truth is that when you refuse to give up on yourself, refuse to give up on that person you believe you can be, I believe you'll find the transformational tools for that person to show up in your life. If you simply do that one thing, refuse to give up, bet on yourself one more time, I believe your transformation is one step closer and is right around the corner for you if you just do that one thing.
Wow. What an insightful suggestion that one is. Very enlightened. Right. I usually say we can always restart. We can always start again. That's one thing that I love saying to some people. But yeah, that's exactly it. And never give up in that sense, of course, because that's the only reason we are here. I truly believe is to find our true nature, which is divine. It's God. Isn't that amazing? There's no other reason, really. I don't see anything else. So thank you so much again for your beautiful presence and for sharing your experience, though. It's just so amazing. Gosh, it didn't make me emotional. And I guess because being in your presence is so empowering that this is divine living. So you are embodying it. And that's why I didn't kind of respond in an emotional way, because I usually do with people that are not there yet. So that's really a beautiful confirmation too. Thank you so much again, Mark, for everything that you've been doing. And we'll be in touch again. I would love to meet you again.
Thank you so much, Valeria. It's been an awesome privilege and pleasure to be with you.
Oh my God, I feel the same way. Thank you. So we'll talk soon. Bye for now, Mark.